Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Just going to let everyone sort of trickle through as we all wait for Zoom to load up. Hope you're all really doing really well. I am myself. In chat, feel free to introduce yourselves, perhaps a charity or organization you're working from, perhaps where you are geographically as well. So, yeah, please feel free to introduce yourselves in chat. We'll give it a few moments just to let everyone's software catch up with each other, and so we can get as many people from the beginning as soon as possible. So many of you in so far, which is really good. Punctuality is key. I'm a big fan. So good so far, seeing so many people. Brilliant. Nearly Friday as well, so I'm definitely in a good mood about that as well. I'm sure everyone else is. Hi, Doug. Hi, John. Louise, hello. So many people. Great. Really good. Jane as well. God, yes. Excellent. Lots and lots of chats as well. So I'll give it like another minute or so as lots to get through today, and want to make sure that we can get the most out of this session as possible as well. Yeah, hello to anyone who's just trickling through now. We'll be starting in a moment. Hope you're having a great day. I certainly am. Like I said, feel free to introduce yourselves in chat as well. And we'll be get going in a moment just to let people sort of trickle through. Lots so far, which is really nice to see. The importance of cybersecurity, always good. For Cyber Awareness Month, we're right at the beginning, aren't we? Excellent. Hi, David. Hi, Emily. Sorry, I know some of you have said hello as well. I've missed it. So many of you saying hello, but yeah, thank you so much for joining us today. Okay, so yeah, let's get started. So good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. I hope you're all having a great week. Like I said, it's nearly Friday, so I'm happy. So it's Cyber Awareness Month. It's an important time of year for us at Charity Digital. Every year, we've seen more and more charities take their cybersecurity more seriously, which is great. We've worked with some brilliant organizations to help us spread the message, to help charities of all shapes and sizes become more cyber secure. Ransomware is a type of cybersecurity attack that is ever present. The charities we work with and help hold a wealth of data that could be harmful to themselves, including their reputation at large as well. Now, with me today is Paul Fenwick from Avast, who is joining me to inform us all about potential risks of ransomware attacks and some other sort of things that you can do and other topics as well. And just before I hand over to Paul, I just want to share a few house rules and pointers for today's session. So the session is currently being recorded and will be uploaded to watch on demand, usually within a week's time. The slides and other resources will be made available to you later via email. Closed captions are available. During the webinar, please ask lots of questions using the Q&A bar. So not in the chat, otherwise you'll be prompted to put it in the Q&A bar. So that's for me to address Paul at the end of the presentation. You can actually upvote questions that you see that you may like to ensure that they do get answered. If you encounter any sound or image issues, please let me know in the chat, and I'll do my very best to get the session back to normal as soon as I can as well. So you can let myself know, or James, our production person in the background today, will be looking after the session as well, just for any questions you know on those type of topics. Useful links Paul mentions during the presentation will be posted in chat and also be available later. And finally, during the presentation in the chat and at the end of the session, you'll be prompted to leave feedback. If you could kindly take a few moments to leave us feedback regarding today's session, it would be greatly be appreciated. It allows us to learn more about the content we provide from a different opinion, which is important, and more importantly than that, helps us make improvements. So without further ado, Paul, good afternoon. Over to you.
Good afternoon, Joe. Thank you. And hello, everyone. Excited to kind of be here and allow me to present. So, yes, as Joe mentioned, I'm Paul Fenwick from Avast. So I'm a product specialist, a sales engineer. So understand the kind of needs and so forth of businesses and charities with things like cybersecurity. And ransomware being kind of the main topic of that, and a good, I say, time to do it with Cyber Awareness Month. So, I suppose, what are we? Why are charities a target? Well, I suppose everyone is a target of cyber attacks, in particular, charities. But as you can see here, there is a huge amount of money within the charity sort of sector. I mean, there's estimates of around 100 billion. So anyone with kind of finances of that is going to be a target by these cyber gangs and so forth to try and kind of con you out of that hard-earned money. And you can see just how many people are affected and work within the sector. So I've put a link up there just to kind of let you see more information on kind of how the charity sector there is. But I think the most part is probably the money. That's what they're in it for. So that's why it's such a big target. And unfortunately, as you can see from there at the bottom point, we're seeing around 32% of charities receiving a cyber attack on a yearly basis. 1 in 3. So quite scary, but hopefully we can show you kind of what to do, steps to take, and so forth to kind of help prevent that. Prevention better being than kind of curing it at the event. So that's kind of why, you know, it is significant, and it's not just monetary value. There's also kind of reputation. There's a lot of other things to be considered as well. I mean, it does affect people in different ways. Perhaps those that maybe clicked on the link suffer some mental health and so forth. So it's not just monetary. It's very upsetting experience for all involved. So why are perhaps charities more of a target than businesses? Well, I think it's unfortunately due to restrictions on their IT budgets or anything like that, because, you know, I can understand, you know, it's always difficult gaining finance through, you know, funding, etc. So you perhaps don't have that to spend like, you know, in other sectors, the money on expensive, you know, firewalls and equipment and so forth, training, etc. that can certainly help lessen the risk. So that's kind of one. Another one is perhaps people kind of maybe using some of their own equipment rather than it being kind of technical. That can be difficult because if people are using their own equipment rather than being managed as the charity, you know, things can kind of slip up in terms of kind of keeping a consistent sort of target of, you know, is it up to date? Is all the sort of software being installed? Is antivirus running correctly? Do we have a backup? All those kind of things. So, and probably like we've seen from the previous slide on the number is the amount of people involved, and a lot of that part-time. So as that, I think as people go in, they perhaps don't get the necessary training or just aren't aware of kind of the impact or processes they should be following. So that's kind of, I think, how they kind of target charities in particular is because they feel they're susceptible and there is a risk there just due to the nature of the charities. So ransomware, for those that aren't kind of aware of it, it's a malicious software that will typically gain access to your system, normally through things like attachments and so forth, and then will run a program either directly from the attachment or normally from a payload where it downloads the software. It will then encrypt the files on yours. Now, that could even just be renaming them so that you just can't tell, or using what we call AES type encryption, which is like military grade level, with a specific phrase, all of which mean that you can't access them. And as such, to gain access, they want to kind of offer you either your data back or a decryption key for a specific amount of money. It may not seem an awful lot of money, but given the amount of people they are targeting, it does accumulate. So that's kind of how a ransomware attack kind of takes place. Now, there are different types of ransomware. The most prevalent is probably what we refer to as a file coder, which, as it suggests, encrypts those files, locks you out, so you can't get into any of those spreadsheets, documents that you've been working on without being able to use a decryption method to get that. These often place a deadline as well, to give you a sense of urgency to kind of act, or your data will be lost forever, you'll never be able to get it back, or they may threaten to release it into the public domain. So that's kind of probably the most common type. There are other screen lockers which are effectively doing the same by just blocking access to your device, locking you out. So these ones tend to mimic security services and so forth, probably more in the States, as you can see here, but they are still prevalent elsewhere and globally. And the last one is scareware. So this is fake software. So you may get it when trying to download maybe some freeware. It says it's found an issue on your device, and to fix it, you'll need to kind of pay. So that's kind of a topic there. And I've just put a link there to our topic and sort of ransomware, just to kind of help explain these. This is from the Avast Academy, to explain the terms and so forth, so you can kind of understand how they work. So that's kind of the sort of types you get of ransomware. Then we're kind of understanding how they get onto us. So as I mentioned, probably the most common ones that people see are through email. That will be a phishing email. So where they've kind of crafted a email with a link or attachment that when opened will kind of install the software, the payload that they wish to do so automatically. Leading into that, the phishing emails are becoming more difficult to spot, particularly with the emergence of AI. But that is still definitely the most common one, is around emails and people being directed to. They'll often have some kind of demand, often kind of timescales or something to do so. Often the attachments will be things related to maybe an invoice, a payment, a service that you can do. So it's worth checking those when you see them. The other time is a website that's been compromised, so they've managed to gain access to the actual code of the website and make changes so that as you, as it were, drive by, or as you were within your browser, this will exploit vulnerabilities. So it runs code that's within the background of that web page, which will then download the software and do that. So you can get that. And that's kind of links, kind of similar to like drive-by downloads, where they can trigger the software and so forth that way. Another way they can do it is by, as it were, hiding it within other software. That's probably more relevant if people try to download maybe some freeware to do something they're looking at. They go, oh, that's great. Here's a nice free piece of software that's going to allow me to take some kind of data, transfer it to something else, and so forth. And it's free rather than me paying Adobe, some other design company or something to do it. But there is a reason it's free. And it's unfortunately not in a good way. So that's kind of quite an unusual one, and probably more difficult to spot. And probably the easiest way is just to kind of avoid using that kind of free software and check that it's a genuine type. Do a bit of research before you kind of install it. And the last one is exploiting vulnerabilities, making sure that the operating system is patched, as they often refer to it, so that they can't exploit. Interestingly, it's almost a bit of a giveaway by people like Windows, Microsoft, etc. When they release information on an update, it often contains information as to what it's addressing. So they're almost giving those cyber criminals an idea of how to exploit the system. And what we kind of recommend, especially with those vulnerabilities, is install them as soon as possible, preferably within kind of 2 weeks. That's where you tend to see, excuse me, the biggest exploits is kind of certainly goes up as cyber criminals are made aware of it and then craft something to exploit that flaw. So what I want to just go through was some of the latest examples of kind of ransomware, and it's been around for quite a long time. In fact, I'll probably work back to front. So we still see today WannaCry. Now, I'm sure most people will remember from way back in 2017 there, that greatly affected our NHS service, this WannaCry. So that's kind of like we were talking about on the previous slide, the last one about patching your software, making an exploit. We still see that. And then kind of they've transitioned. So we've got kind of Enigma is probably one that we still see, which is very similar to Silence. So that is a file encoder where you see it actually encrypts the file, changes the file names, and gives the information in a README text. So that's kind of been about since 2023. But probably the biggest one that we see and continues to be the most relevant is Lockbit. A particularly more clever because it's kind of rather than evolved. What this will also do is seek out other targets in spread and accessible, backups, other equipment, and so systems as well. So it's got that little bit more intelligence and obviously more difficult to kind of isolate and get rid of. I mean, there is some good news. One of the most prolific users is Evil Corp, a huge cyber crime gang from Russia. And just reported the other day, I just thought I'd put in this there, that some good news, you know, the security services, along with ours, have kind of made sanctions against these. Unfortunately, they are based in Russia, travel bans and so forth, and kind of identified these people. And hopefully action will be carried out against them. But unfortunately, as these kind of gangs go, you know, cut off the head of one snake and so forth, so another one will evolve. Or some of the people within Evil Corp that are not already being identified will move into other groups. So it's always just going to continually evolve. But Lockbit is certainly the one that's of more. And that's what we reported within, if you look at our threat report, which is in the link there, that kind of lets you know the most prevalent ones that we've seen over the past quarter. So over a 3-month period, what are the sort of risks and things to see? So it's all kind of bad news. I hate kind of going on too much about this, but you know, it is important that people understand, you know, what to do, why are we doing this, and so forth. So what I thought I'd kind of put here is, on the next slide, is what to do if you're actually experiencing a ransomware attack. So your screen kind of suddenly comes up and says, you know, you're under attack, or you need to pay us. What to do? First thing, I suppose, take a breath, keep calm. Don't kind of, I mean, it's understandably human nature that you're going to kind of feel anger, fear of what kind of they're going to steal, what they're going to do. You know, we're going to lose all the money from the charity. With all this data, what's going to happen? The main thing is don't do anything rash. You know, don't just kind of go, oh my goodness, let's just pay that now. There may not be a need for that. So keep calm, first of all. Probably what an important step is take a picture of it. So whether you can take a screenshot of that or using your mobile phone, just take that. This will prove really useful when you kind of, speak with filling in, say, a police report on that, an insurance claim, if that was required. And it will also help in kind of one of the other steps is to identify that strain. Now, if you can identify what strain of ransomware that is, certainly with us at Avast and some other vendors, we offer decryption tools for ransomware. So if you can perhaps identify what it is, we may already have the decryption tool to be used to actually get that back again. So that's where it's kind of worth making sure you just get that photo so that you can kind of have a look about and see what it is. The next kind of course of action would be to basically just pull the plug, turn off the Wi-Fi. They can't do any more damage to your device if it's not connected to the internet. A lot of this will run remotely. It may try to download other software to carry out actions. So disconnecting it will kind of help stop that problem. Another important one would be to eject and remove storage devices. So things like Lockbit are very clever at finding out where you've kept your data and your backups. So particularly if you use things like USB drives to back up your data, it's a good idea to kind of obviously keep that in the cloud, but also if they are good, it is used locally, then remove them kind of straight away. Because you're only as good as your last backup, as people used to say to me within IT. So making sure you've got a backup that you can get that information without having to kind of pay the money. You covered kind of the ransom side. So the last one, reset your password. So when they've got access to your system, what they can do is kind of work away in the background for a while and actually pull through your browser stored passwords, which can then compromise, they may use that to their advantage to then go into other sites, not just banking, but to buy things on their behalf, but using your credentials. So choose a new password. And this goes with password policies. Try to make your passwords strong, complex, and try to choose different passwords for different services and so forth. Don't try to use the same password, because as soon as it's breached, it's then chances are people will use your email address and that password on other common sites and services. So perhaps a password manager. And the last thing is report it. I've done some kind of webinars with some regional units. So the NCSC, so the National Cyber Security Council, and the police do work together in these regional organised crime units regarding fraud. So lots of useful information if you look at action fraud, and they do have a 24/7 telephone number dedicated to that. So that's kind of probably an important one is to make sure to report it. It also helps everyone else. So we can kind of start to see what's taking place, then we can kind of help coordinate, take actions against these. Now, to help with prevention, what I recommend is in line with the NCSC and government guidelines. And this here is a great article which goes through all the things you can help do to kind of prevent and mitigate these kind of ransomware and malware risks. So I mentioned there about backing it up, your data, so that you can kind of return it, even if it has been encrypted, keeping it in the cloud. Make sure you're running particularly things like an endpoint protection. So an antivirus or something that's going to kind of do that. Enable strong passwords, so as we can see there. In particular, if possible, use two-factor or multi-factor authentication. So you see it with your digital banking. If you can enable that secondary authentication method, please do so. That kind of does, help make things far more difficult. It's even got their changing default passwords and so forth like that. I mentioned already about patching the software for exploits, but some of the other things would be controlling USB. So controlling what is passed between kind of, charity information and personal. Trying to kind of keep things separate from that so that you're not going to cross-contaminate from that point of view. And the other thing is probably biggest thing on there is training. Training for your staff to kind of be aware of what kind of things to spot. Now, there's a lot of useful free training guides and so forth out there on, how to kind of help people spot, a potential scam or ransomware type email message or SMS, whatever kind of delivery method. And other such kind of training things that can be done just so that you're kind of more aware of the actions you can take. So that's a particularly useful one. And because it's kind of government based, you can see it's independent from that. It's not. Obviously, I'm from Avast. I'm actually from Gen, the bigger company, but I'll come on to that in a second. The Avast solutions we offer through Charity Digital to kind of help with portions of that. And you'll see that that covers things like our endpoint protection, which has multiple shields that kind of try to spot any malicious software and how it's kind of trying to be delivered to you. So whether that's been through a browser in the web, a file, so it checks the files, email, and behavior shield. Behavior shield's actually it's a type of AI which we've kind of had for a long time. And how that works is it doesn't look for a specific as it were threat or piece of code. It goes based on what the process and actions are. So we kind of know what's typical behavior of these malware, ransomware type things, like they try to download something, they try to rename files and so forth like that. This will actually see that behavior and then flag it as suspicious. So it may not be aware of it, but it understands what's going on and kind of goes, let's put a pause on that and then let's review it. And then you can see there's patch management to help against things like that WannaCry, which is really still out there, but the next generation of exploitation software. So you can see that we do have a lot in there, postings and so forth. You can discuss that with Charity Digital themselves. And just kind of one of the last things to kind of help with was I just wanted to kind of give you some free offerings. I'm a technical guy, I'm not a sales guy. So, what can I do to kind of help? So we have at Avast lots of kind of resources and so forth available for you. And a lot of these are at no cost for you to kind of, educate and understand or kind of help in kind of various different ways. So the first one I've put up is the blog. Lots of useful articles in there. We actually even done a cybersecurity training quiz aimed at SMBs, but could be used for charities and so forth, just to, like we said, training staff, let people take the quiz, if they make a mistake and so forth, fine, we've identified it, it's a good thing. So that's kind of available there. The Avast Academy, so for those that kind of don't understand a lot of this cyber security, it's fine for you, you're an IT person, you pick up on that. Explaining these. So we've got, information that goes in and tries to explain in a clear method what all these terms are. What is malware? What is ransomware? What is a a phishing attack? What is spear phishing? All these kind of different terms that you'll see bandied about the media or relating to IT and cybersecurity, you can understand them more there. Now, as I mentioned earlier, some of the ransomware, once we identify how they've encrypted your files, we actually post onto our website the decryption tools at no cost. So we're trying to kind of combat against them, and because if we make it that the decryption tool is free, they'll have to then kind of work to kind of create a new one or so forth. So we're just trying to kind of at least fight back against them from that point of view. The Avast hack check is someplace you can go. There are other ones on the internet, but basically you type in your email address. It will then do a search and give you information on where your email address has been compromised in previous data breaches. So that then might give you an idea as to kind of where you should perhaps now change your password, because you used the same password to a new service that you used on one that was breached. So check that out first of all and have a look there. And the last one you'll notice is a Norton. Now, Avast merged a couple of years ago with Norton, and we all come under the brand Gen Digital. So what we've launched using kind of our combined knowledge within sort of cybersecurity is this is a step forward into kind of helping people more, because it's more evolving not just from a virus working like a ransomware, but just a con, a scam. So what we're doing here is we've made it online. There's also an app you can put on your mobile device, whether it be Android or Apple iOS. And it will then, from a screen capture that you take, and so an image, or from text that you can copy and paste in there, it will read that. And based on the machine learning that this is done and what it's been fed and so forth, will let you know if that is a potential scam or not. And that's all free. We're building up kind of the efficiency and so forth of this, but it kind of lets you show that we're aware of kind of what's going on, as unfortunately these cyber gangs and so forth are making use of AI, try to make it appeal, the wording, so it's not got all the incorrect spellings or things that we maybe used to have that kind of spotted these sort of fake spam type messages before, that may have contained viruses. So that's kind of, leave that up there. I'm sure James is pasting into the chat there, or hopefully you can see all those to take away and have a look at. But particularly the bottom two, particularly useful for you to kind of see what information's already been exposed, or helping people make sure they're not scammed. So it's all for free. There's plenty of other resources at the NCSA. I would definitely point you in that direction as well. So trying to kind of give a kind of overview there from kind of what is ransomware, how to deal with it, and how to prevent it. So I think what I'll do now is pass it over, and hopefully we've got some more questions, Joe.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you that very much for that, Paul. And yes, we've certainly received some questions through already. Thank you as well for also clarifying the relationship between Avast and Norton as well. I don't think not everyone maybe is aware of that and may still see you as potential, separate entities or separate rivals in that sense as well. So no, I really appreciate that. Thank you. So yeah, good few questions so far. So I'm going to start off with a question from Louise Gilder. Now I think I understand what you mean here, so I'll read it to you. So if I find a free online software which isn't a download, do these still have issues, or are these safer? So perhaps those websites where perhaps you have to stay on the website to use
Yes, I understand. So it depends on them. Some of them will be made free. We've got to think about how they are being funded, like everything else financially. So often they'll be funded. They may be, if they're just funded by kind of advertisement and so forth, that means that their costs are covered, so they're not as risk. But they can have, as they're doing the task, there kind of may be code running within your browser. So it's just be very careful. What we kind of would almost say is kind of try and run it in a safe mode. So we kind of open it up, and this is where we've got technology like a sandbox environment, which allows, that it's segregated. It's part of your computer, but it's segregated from everywhere else. You can open it up and try it on there, and then you'll know if it's kind of safe or not. But yeah, it's just kind of probably. So they tend to be, rather than the free software, but there is still a potential risk, unfortunately, as with everything.
Absolutely. And I'm glad you mentioned the word adverts there, as that tends to be becomes part and parcel with a lot of software like that, doesn't it?
Yes, yes.
So our next question is from Peter Colback. So what does a company like Avast offer as third party compared to, say, using Microsoft 365 integrated security like Defender and more?
So, very good question, Peter. So, I suppose there's a couple of aspects on that. So, if we look at the antivirus, so the endpoint protection that you mentioned there against Windows Defender, we have probably been in the business longer. Microsoft actually sort of purchased it. So, we're going back to AVG days. We've been in this game for over about 30 years now, purely focused on that. And we've got a lot more shields and kind of different types of detection. And another way to also have a look at it, for any antivirus, if you're not sure, is there's a couple AV test and AV comparisons. Test our, all the vendors, so Microsoft, Avast, Kaspersky, Trends, various others, against, threats and so forth, and check how good they are. That's particularly worth showing. I hate to blow our own trumpet, but we do come pretty much top most of the time. So that's kind of where I would say on that. As for another aspect of kind of the Microsoft would be regarding the patching. So Windows does a great job, Apple does too, in kind of updating the system. You get your Windows automatic updates and so forth. What we have with like the patch management is we're also updating all the other software that you've got on your machine. Your browsers, in particular, things like Chrome, Firefox, or your Adobe software, your meeting software, all those other ones, making sure they're at the latest versions as well. So it's not just the operating system. That could be great, but if you're running an old version, I don't know, it could be just an old version of Chrome. There's an exploit in there. So that's where kind of like the Avast patch management helps you kind of identify that and address that.
Great, thanks, Paul. And I definitely patch management is, I would say, probably more underutilized sort of feature availability compared to antivirus, which is maybe a term that people are more commonly aware of.
Yeah, it is, John. It's still like we're seeing, and I mentioned there, we're still seeing effects of things like the WannaCry that was, it's been out there for so long, but it just shows that some people don't like to patch or update. When actually it's probably the easiest thing to kind of do. Install and reboot.
Absolutely. And I think the confusing thing I find, especially with people I've spoken to about cybersecurity solutions when Windows Defenders come up here, is that many people don't know Windows Defender has many different variations or plans available.
Yes.
They're not always sure. So if anyone out there today is using Windows Defender, check what you're actually covered for. As like, for example, entry-level versions of Defender tend to be more email security than your typical endpoint protection, for example, if that's what you're looking for. So yeah, that's just something to look out for there as well.
Yeah, because we kind of address threats, but in layers. So we're trying to protect the device by all the different layers and mechanisms. And as you say, sometimes it's making sure that what you've got isn't just addressing one particular kind of attack vector, as they kind of refer to it, and so forth. So yeah, good point.
Exactly. No, thank you, Paul. So next one is from Mark Shadrack. So, is it only data on laptops which is affected by ransomware? If data is stored on a secure shared cloud-based device such as OneDrive, SharePoint, can that also be affected?
Most of the time, it's locally. However, with things like Lockbit, as I mentioned, because you've almost got a mapped drive to things like OneDrive, etc., it can get access and start to do it that way. So that's where we're seeing kind of things are starting to get into clouds. And that's why, unfortunately, it may already be corrupted. They're getting that clever. So they will actually kind of analyze what's on your drives, not just on the, as we refer to it, technical, your C drive, so the local drive, but all your other shared drives. And often those kind of services are linked via some kind of mapping. So you may have a shared drive that's on a server, whether that be kind of locally or in the cloud, identify them and try to do that. So it's not just local as it kind of was. They've evolved to actually target backups because they realized it was easy before that they could just, people would go, it doesn't matter, I'll just wipe my computer and go from backup. They've got in there first. So, yes.
Okay, great, thank you. And this particular question I've been really looking forward to asking, actually, because so this one's from Michael Clay, and I'm sure this one will bring you a smile. So, is the Apple system more secure than the Windows system?
It would depend how we're looking at this, but is often I think there's been a term that people think, oh, there's no viruses, it's all just aimed at Microsoft. Unfortunately, that is completely incorrect. They will target everything. They will, Android, iOS, all those operating systems. There's even those for Linux and so forth. So, as a antivirus vendor, we see threats that are aimed at, and they do include Apple. So there are those. So, I mean, as for kind of the differences, then you're starting to defend whether you're an Apple person or a Microsoft person into how the operating system has been designed. But from a threat perspective, unfortunately, all the operating systems are a risk. Maybe don't see quite as much of it in the news and everything else, or are aware of it. But if you actually have a look online and some in the news, you'll see that it is that.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm glad you addressed that, because so many people, Apple users I've spoken to, seem to have this immunity about them at times, saying, "I have an Apple, I'm fine." So it's really good to get that message out there.
And as usual, they're exploiting that. The cyber criminals go, "Oh, you think you're safe? Okay, right. Let me just address that." Because then people think I don't need to worry about updating my Mac so much, but it is probably more important then that they do so.
Thank you very much. So next one's from Anna Redmond. So we currently have Norton Small Business. Is this sufficient alongside Windows Defender?
So yeah, the Norton Small Business is something which, of course, now that's I work on both sides. It is doing the same. So the Norton Small Business does have the same antivirus endpoint protection, but it does have other utilities and so forth as well. And depending on the version of Norton Small Business you've purchased, it does come with things like cloud backup, and other tools and so forth. So yes, if you're that, then you've already taken, it also does things like software updates. So you're already moving in that kind of recommended steps that we kind of put forward there on that. So that's good to see that. Yes, I am kind of, I've got to play kind of to all our brands. But yes, the Norton business. The only thing with that is it's not, when you get to charity with perhaps more than a small amount of devices, they're having things like the cloud care and so forth that we do through Charity Digital gives you that central view and control, which is what you may then need. So the not small business is fine if you're kind of running it on a small amount of devices, but as you kind of the charity grows and so forth, you need to kind of keep an eye on all the devices, and that just gets more tricky without that central management.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it tends to be a quite a common pattern where the larger an organization is, the more like they're more likely to move over to a more enterprise sort of style level, like Avast compared to Norton, although it's still a great product. Just say thank you to Kelly for sharing the link with online training for the NCSC. So thank you very
Yeah.
much for that. Next question is from, I hope I get this pronounced right. So Emily LePage. So we have a strong presence on our social medias, i.e. Facebook. What would potential threats look like in this format? And would there be any additional steps we could take to keep us safe? Thank you.
There is on that. So not through my Avast, but with my Norton. On part of the Norton side, they've got an arm called LifeLock. Now, what they deal with is kind of identity. So they actually do things like social media monitoring. So they've got a particular product called social media monitoring. Now, what that will do is that will take the information from your accounts. So whether it be, your Twitter, your Facebook, your LinkedIn, and notify you if there's been any kind of changes or posts or anything like that. So there is things aimed at that to kind of help protect your reputation, which is kind of really what you're wanting to do. I mean, there's things like that gamer tag, but there's a lot of that kind of identity is kind of protection is kind of what you're kind of really looking at. And I would just kind of advise you to have a look more at the LifeLock version of the Gen family for that.
Thank you so much. Also covering Norton as well. I bet you feel like the Monopoly guy having to cover both.
Yeah, I know it does seem that, but it's nice to kind of understand what other technologies you have there that unfortunately may not fit here, but there is something over there that addresses something you're talking about. And I mean, it is a big thing. I mean, your reputation online is key. I mean, like we said, with a ransomware, if they kind of somebody gets hold of your social media accounts and just starts churning out fake news and so forth, then yeah, it could help funding in the end. So
And just a follow-up from Louise earlier regarding when we spoke about using sort of online software rather than the download. I think you mentioned the safe mode earlier. Is that the same as like using an incognito browser? Or is
well, incognito kind of restricts some of that. So that, I mean, that's where it's not getting cookies and not downloading content so much. So it's certainly better, but in a safe mode, what we have is this is opening up in what we call a sandbox. Is kind of that virtual environment is kind of the safest way to actually kind of test this. And that's what kind of our antivirus does, which is unsure of threats. It will go, hold on a second, let me just almost take this into its own little space, open it up and check. So yeah, I mean, it is good using the incognito. It's kind of more stopping them tracking you and so forth, and stopping some of the often browsers will do things like a bank mode and so forth that restrict what can be run. Like there's other little plugins and so forth that can run. So yes, that's kind of useful if you are kind of doing something while you're searching rather than that. And notice that oh yeah, but it's also mentioned a lot of adverts around a real download. Yes, yes. Unfortunately, it's how they gain their money with a lot of these things. That's the problem, is the adverts, as Joe mentioned. It's how they fund picking up in the cost of keeping this stuff online. So just beware when, it's kind of banded about free, or what they'll be after is sometimes they may not be ransomware, but they're after your details. And then they can actually sell your details and so forth as well. There's still, even though GDPR came in, there's still brokers that sell people's information and so forth to third parties. So yeah, it may not just be ransomware they're after, just any data.
And fun fact, incognito window is probably the most popular answer for any online support queries or issues that you're having? What's the why am I having this issue? Try an incognito browser.
Yeah,
It
we
usually
have
does
to
work.
constantly do that ourselves with our own systems. Let's try it in
Usually
this just
works.
to make sure.
Exactly.
So
Well,
yeah, it is, thanks, Louise. It is worth kind of letting people aware. Have a look if you're not quite sure what that kind of incognito safe browser method is.
thank you. And so a question from Ruth Bravery. So, is there a connection with what you've been talking about today and cyber attacks on organization websites?
Uh, not specifically know about that. I would need to kind of obviously see what kind of who has been affected. Often people don't like to disclose that they've had an attack. Certainly speaking with some of the police, cybercrime teams, that's kind of what they seem to find, that, people are reluctant to kind of know that they've been breached and so forth. So I'm not aware of kind of specifics. The only way we probably need to do is we've got a reputation team on the other side that kind of help people. And there are packages that are available to do that through things like cyber insurance. They would be able to tell kind of the full damage that has been done and kind of how it's kind of taken place. But sometimes it's not monetary values, not much, but it's all the other stuff that is the impact.
Thank you, Paul. So a question from Ian. So having built up several different laptops for church usage, we have different security. So McAfee, Defender, and AVG. Oh, you might be familiar with them. Well, what's the best way to sort it out?
Very difficult. As long as they're all Windows, what I would look to do and recommend is trying to get one. Just make things easier for yourself. And that's where, like we explained, having something like the cloud care means you have the same one running, and the advantage it will give you is within that central, it will alert you if any of the devices are not up to date. That might be just because the person's on holiday and you're aware of that, but it's useful to know that that's kind of the easy, because otherwise a device by device, the only way to know is you would need to interrupt the user, remotely access them, and just check that everything's okay, which is a bit of a manual task. So that's certainly what I'd recommend. As you grow, you do get to that time where, all the manual work just doesn't seem to really work. You need something to kind of help manage that. So that's what I'd recommend on there.
So essentially, as you grow an organization, ideally you'd want to maybe centralize their
Yeah,
cybersecurity.
exactly.
Yeah.
And it's an important part of, the planning. One of the things I can't remember I mentioned is like make a cyber, plan, cyber action plan. What would happen if we get ransomware? How should we do this? It's kind of just plan and think about your cyber security as a charity. What are we doing? What's that? Just so people know we use this, we've got that, and so forth. So that's useful. So
Yes, great. I was actually had the pleasure of being on a webinar yesterday with the Digital Care Hub, who actually did a webinar mentioning about having that type of action plan in place, or what they call it like a business continuity, but really focused on cybersecurity. So look out for it out there as well. So thank you, Paul. From the anonymous attendee. So, is multi-factor authentication a way to protect against ransomware in itself?
it's not against ransomware because that could be delivered in different methods, but it's a great way to secure your credentials being used and being compromised, because that's really what it's doing. It's verifying that it's you and getting away from just a username and password. So if I've managed to find somebody's username and password, their email and a password they've maybe used on Facebook, I can then go and try it on the bank. I know if I can have a look, or I can determine where there's information on the dark web. I do that, but because you've implemented the multi-factor authentication, when it sends a message or it requires an app number, code, whatever, I can't move past that. That's what's kind of blocking that. Even if your details are breached, rather than it just being a username and password that's fairly not guessable, but they could find that information out, that they can't get the authentication step. So it's not a true one, but it's kind of more a part of the whole cyber security plan.
Wonderful. Thank you, Paul. Okay. So, looks like we've come towards the end of our questions. We'll give one more minute to see if there's any last more triggers come through. So we have a tiny bit more time left. But in the meantime, just while we're waiting for the last question, just want to say, if you kindly leave your feedback for our session today, it really greatly helps improve our sessions and makes us provide better sessions like this as well. So it's really, really appreciated. Yep, and Ian has snuck in again with the last question we're going to take the afternoon. So, what would be your recommendation how to close off and combine security?
Well, I say I would push it just because I'm obviously on here for Avast and so forth. But if we were to address that, Ian, what we would look to do is take something like the Avast Cloud Care. Now, we've tried to simplify things as well, that when you actually, purchase your allocation through Charity Digital and get up and running, you're created with the installer. What it will actually do is it will remove the existing antivirus and replace it with the Avast to try and help that process. So you're not having to think about being exposed or whatever. We will install the Avast and then remove the previous one. And then everything should be reporting straight into that portal. And that way you can then kind of start to take control and, plan that management and so forth. And that can kind of say it like you. But that's just kind of how we work, or I'm sure others do as well. But that's, it replaces the existing antivirus without you having to be kind of overly technical and kind of go, how do I uninstall this and put on that? It does it automatically. It's part of a script. There's actually a list of the supported software available as well.
Thank you, Paul. I must say, it's a great platform and comes with a really useful a remote control tool as well, which is very, very understated, I would say. But yeah, no, thank you very much for that, Paul. Really, really thank you for joining us with our session today. So yeah, again, also as I say, thank you all for joining us today as well. Also thanks to James looking after production, getting all those links in the background today as well. Just want to let you know here, still here, that our next webinar is at the same time next week, how to convert likes into action on social media. So I hope some of you will join us for that. And again, like I said a few moments ago, please again, leave feedback as you go exit the meeting. If you haven't done so already, your feedback is essential for us to improve our services. So I hope you have a good afternoon. Again, thank you, Paul, for joining us today.
No problem. Thank you, John. Thank everyone for your time.
Wonderful. And have a great afternoon, everyone. Goodbye now.